Going inside the issues of our community, this is Local 12 Newsmakers.
And we cannot do it without the money in the bank. So it's a mistake. It was a mistake when it came up. It's a mistake today. It'll be a mistake tomorrow.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. In 2007, Jim Tarbell carries the title Vice Mayor and speaks on tax policy. Who would have ever guessed? As an off-the-charts extrovert, Jim has long been a force to be dealt with. As a proprietor of the Clifton Garage in the late 60s and early 70s, he used rock and roll to express himself. In what has to be some sort of metaphysical conflict of interest, this good charterite is also a card-carrying member of the Saloon Keepers Party. And just like Charter's ultimate anti-hero, boss George Cox, Tarbell has held court for years on a plethora of topics from behind the bars of Arnold's and Grammer's. When the public needed a little help imagining what he was talking about with Broadway Commons, Tarbell just painted the ball field on the parking lot and urged his fellow citizens to join the cause.
If you like the idea, express yourself. Write a letter. Write a letter to the bank or the businessman, the biggest businessman you know. Write a letter to city council. Write a letter to the city manager. Write a letter to Mrs. Schott.
But term limits, if not time, is catching up with Tarbell. A member of City Council since 1998, Jim cannot run this fall. I am joined this morning by impresario, restaurateur, barkeep, gadfly, and Vice Mayor Jim Tarbell. Jim, welcome to Newsmakers. I don't know how many more times I'm going to get to use the Saloon Keepers Party line, so I just had to do it one more time.
Oh, I think it's bound to come up. I'm only 65.
You've been involved in city affairs and city politics long before you were a member of City Council. What did you learn by being a member of City Council that you didn't understand from the outside and might be useful for people who are interested in politics to know how things really work?
Well, you better be patient. I don't know that I've had the kind of patience in the past that I've had to exhibit in the last few years. I think that that more than anything. Nothing else was much of a surprise. I'd been around it, I think, long enough to know. It's harder to make deals nowadays. I think it's harder to put a coalition together because there isn't the continuity of leadership.
Because of term limits?
Term limits is certainly one of the factors.
Yeah.
My predecessor, Bobby Stern, was off and on council for 25 years. Yeah. Charlie Taft, before 30. That, holds the record. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and not only were they on council, but they had the institutional memory. Both of those people could remember how things had been done 20 years ago or 25. I mean, Charlie Taft could quote budgets to you from decades ago.
And I have budget directors and finance, administrators, various kinds come up to me on a regular basis and say, they missed both of them. They always went to them. They knew that they could confide in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was some great people who have been on council, and of course, following Bobby was a great opportunity for you. What is it that you're proudest of that you have been able to accomplish, patience and all?
Oh, I don't know. There's any one thing in particular. I think it's the sum total of events and projects, and really most of which surround the rejuvenation of the inner city, downtown over the Rhine West End. I would hope that the attention I've paid to that, especially since I moved down here in 1971 and became acutely aware of the challenges, and I applied, part of every day to that. And I think it's the sum total of the different projects in that regard that I've been involved in that I would point to. I don't know of anyone in particular. Certainly if baseball had gone to Broadway, that would have been it. The fact that it didn't, to me, doesn't diminish how I feel about having been involved in it in the first place. I think that was really important. It still plays a part in terms of people's thinking about what would be most appropriate, even though it didn't happen. People still reference it as to something that should happen. Well, what that means is people are still thinking about how we can correct mistakes, or how we can do better the next time.
Do you feel like, in a collective sort of way, the ball has been advanced down the field in the last decade? Is the downtown, is the basin in a significantly different place than it was a decade ago?
Oh, it's high drama, really. If you go to Vine Street right now as we speak, take a film clip with you, or a photograph or a story from 10 years ago of the section of Vine between Central Parkway and 13th, for instance. Look at that, read it carefully, and then go down there and walk that path right now and feel the energy that's there. Look at the shopkeepers that are open now. Look at the vacant buildings that have been redone and that now are housing people, and not just housing people, but the way in which they were redone, the care that was given. Mm-hmm. If you look at the cornices of these buildings that are still intact from the 19th century when they were built, and you look at the care that was given in designing and implementing those, and then you go inside and look at the contemporary rejuvenation of them, it's really heartening.
Mm-hmm. Of course, the movement of the Arts Consortium down to 12th and Jackson,
the Art Academy.
Art Academy, I'm sorry, was really important.
Big deal.
To that, because it's right there where you're talking about. If people don't know, it's right. Part of that really gateway project.
Yeah, that's for me personally is a real important thing. We had formed the Arts and Culture Committee. We had appropriated some major dollars to support bricks and mortar capital arts improvements, and the Art Academy is really at the center of that effort of the last 5-6 years, assisting them, helping make their move from Mount Adams to Eden Park to 12th and Jackson was a real key contribution for the city.
You've probably pushed harder on the arts and culture front, certainly than any other current city council member, but maybe ever. Why is that important?
Well, I'm comfortable in that milieu in the first place. So it wasn't, when I began to realize more and more as a full-time resident and a business person, et cetera, downtown and over the Rhine, arts as so much of the foundation of the success of this city in every respect, not just culturally but economically, became so much more clear how important that has been and still is. So being comfortable with people and those institutions in the first place, and then coming to realize how much of a hook it is for us to keep our city strong and make it stronger, it was a kind of a no-brainer to spend more time and energy promoting it.
Is there anybody on council who's going to pick up that thread and carry it for you?
Well, we'll see who gets in this November. Of the folks that are there now, I think there's an increasing awareness, on a daily basis. Not necessarily folks that came to the table a couple of years ago with that charge, but I think it's growing daily. Is there one person I would point to that's going to take the lead? I don't know, but I feel good about people including it in their language more and more every day now.
Okay, I want to point out that almost exactly 9 years ago, July the 1st, 1998, longtime councilwoman Bobby Stern resigned during a summer council meeting by simply not returning from a break. She asked that you be appointed as the way of giving a charterite the advantage of incumbency going into the fall campaign. And one of the questions I want to ask you is, are you contemplating a similar thing? We're now in the summer break. You'll come back for a meeting later this month. Are you thinking about a similar move?
Well, it's come up. We'll see how it plays out. We're kind of going one day at a time here. but you never know.
As you look at the candidates on the ballot and charter, I mean, I ask you about your own party, your own organization, besides Chris Bortz, who's an incumbent, have a couple of new people running this time, Joan Kaup and Melanie Bates. What would you want to say about those two people?
Well, I think they both have their own rewards in terms of what they have to offer. I think Melanie Bates has had some real serious challenges, you know, personally and with her family, and I think wants to act on that to bring it more forcefully in front of people.
The murder of her husband, Phil, in case anybody's missing. Okay.
But she's been active in the past, particularly in education issues on the State Board of Education, presently on the local Board of Education, and was the director of the Democratic Party for a period of time. And so there's a great deal of experience there in her career. Joan Kaup is unique. Speaking of arts, and if there was someone who was going to carry that banner, so much of her adult life has been spent in and around arts-related activities and marketing-related activities having to do with the city. I think she's uniquely qualified. She's not known outside of art circles, and so it's a real challenge for her, but she's really a wonderful person with a great resume.
Why at this stage in 2007 is it important that a charterite, or charterites in the plural, be on council? Is it still important at this stage, really?
Oh, I don't know that it's in and of itself that critical. It has so much more to do really with individuals' experience and dedication, energy, that although the controversy of old-time politics versus city manager system is still out there. We haven't resolved this yet. We don't have a mayor as a CEO. We still have the manager as a CEO, and the mayor has more authority than he used to have, but is not a member of council right now. Does not vote with council. We're not there yet. We have a hybrid right now that is not right.
And what should it be to get it right?
I'm not prepared to say that today, but we either need to reclaim the manager as more clearly the CEO and the mayor as part of council, a member of council that tends towards coalition building and I think stronger results for us in the community. Or we go the other way where the mayor is the CEO and clearly has more authority.
We have an executive mayor.
Executive mayor. And that brings with it, it depends on who it is.
Right.
To me, I think it's not anymore just the system. If you look where systems have changed in the past, the ones that worked always had a team that was doing that. And there were faces that led it that were part of it. It wasn't just a systemic change, it was a team.
It was a people. I'm out of time, but I have to ask one more question. Do you know where you're headed?
Well, I know I want to stay in touch with what I've been doing, really in the worst way. There's so much going on right now. It's so exciting with Cincinnati in general, downtown over the Rhine in particular. I want to stay close. I can't say specifically yet, I just don't know.
Yeah, the thing about you is there's no easy job category for you. You're just Jim Tarbell. And we will miss you at City Hall. But I got a feeling you'll, just like you were before you were on council, you'll be everywhere. You just seem to pop up everywhere.
It's like an old shoe.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for being here this morning.
You.
Thank you for your work. Stay tuned. After the break, a look at a proposal to connect downtown Cincinnati commuters with Milford through the Eastern Corridor. Welcome back. For some years now, planners at Hamilton County, the City of Cincinnati, Claremont County, OKI, and other entities have been exploring the feasibility of transforming an existing rail right-of-way into a new commuter line. In downtown Cincinnati, the line would start at the Riverfront Transit Center below 2nd Street. Using diesel engines, the line would run eastward along the riverfront on the existing Oasis line, turn north through the Little Miami Valley, crossing the river on a new bridge, and terminate in Milford. To discuss the proposed Eastern Corridor, I am pleased to be joined this morning by Ted Hubbard with the Hamilton County Engineers Office, Eileen Enabnit, the head of the Department of Transportation and Engineering at the City of Cincinnati, and Martha Kelly, a staff member at the City Department of Transportation, who's been working on this project. Welcome to Newsmakers. Ted, welcome back.
Thank you.
Eileen, where does this plan stand? It's been in process now for some years. Are we at a point where enough of this is put together that you could actually see an implementation stage beginning?
The plan is a long-term process. This is a long-term planning effort and incorporates not just the rail line, but a number of roadway improvements and improvements to 32. We are still in the study process. There are additional steps that need to go through in terms of study and environmental study.
Okay, so any sense of how much longer that study process goes before you could actually begin getting money and doing construction and doing something?
Part of that depends on having the funding available to do the study, but there would be several years of environmental study that would still be required.
Ted, why is this important?
Well, I think it's important to the City of Cincinnati and to Hamilton County especially because we're an area that has been losing population. What the Eastern Corridor multimodal project does is it expands the market areas of both the City of Cincinnati and Hamilton County to attract private investment. But it also, the family of projects that are involved, as Eileen said, the rail, the highway, the bus, the bike and pedestrian, it'll save about 50 million vehicle miles per year that's traveled in our region. So that makes us far more efficient. It puts us in an environment where we attract private investment into the urban core, and it also makes our travel efficiency far more efficient. The current system encourages travel around 275. As you come in from Claremont County, we travel along 275 to go to 471 into the city or up to I-71 down into Hamilton County in the city. This provides a multimodal connection in the Eastern Corridor area that can travel directly into the Red Bank area, through Anderson Township, and into the City of Cincinnati.
Martha, one of the questions that has been raised is why the proposal, at this stage anyway, is to use diesel as opposed to using light rail, which has been discussed here in other contexts and is being used in lots of different places in the United States right now. Why use of diesel?
Well, the diesel technology that we have proposed is a light rail technology. It is a lighter weight, much like the electric. The only difference is it is run by diesel and not overhead electric. The reason that this was chosen is because there are tracks in place, although they would have to be upgraded, but it would be a cheaper installation than installing the entire overhead electric system. And also we are running into the downtown along Pete Rose Way, and the overhead electric just would be more expensive and maybe an aesthetic issue as well.
But in terms of our current environmental concerns about petroleum-based products, in terms of pollution, in terms of the availability of all of that sort of thing, that still makes sense?
Yes, we are still pursuing that as our option. Obviously, as the design progresses, you could convert. We could decide to go to the electric, but at this time, this is just what we've chosen. The designs are very similar.
We've been told by our consultant it's very clean technology. These engines actually produce electricity, and that runs the train. So
they're hybrids?
No, they're not. I don't know if I want to go that far, but they do produce electricity, and we've been advised by our consultant that it's very clean technology.
As an owner of a Prius, I would like to think it's just a big Prius, but no, it's apparently not. Let's take a look. I'd like to take a look at the map that we showed very briefly when I put it up before, and in the introduction. Eileen, this is going to show, and I know it's going to be difficult for people to see it, but well, this is a This is the map that shows multiple lines, but it's basically that line that starts down in the center of the city with red and travels out the river, turns up, and you can see the red line pick up again in eastern Hamilton County. Is that line, is that right-of-way already owned, or are we going to face, here's the other line, this is easier to see here, or the other map, this is a little bit easier to see. Is that right-of-way already in public ownership, so that, because a big cost, whether it's building a road or building something like this, is the cost of the real estate to create the line. Does this already exist?
A lot of it is in public or quasi-public. SORTA owns a portion of it, so a lot of it is, and most of it is still being currently used or has tracks on it. So it's.
And is that a problem with the railroads that are carrying freight over it? Would they have a problem abandoning their parts of it?
Well, they wouldn't necessarily have to abandon it.
SORTA owns the property from the boathouse all the way out to Fairfax.
Right.
So that is owned by SORTA. They have given rights to operate to the freight companies, but also that was purchased for the intent of public transportation. So at the time that public transit is put on those lines, the railroad freight company does have to either get off of there or perhaps go to a temporal separation where they operate at night. And it's very light freight service that we do think that would be possible for them to accomplish.
And then from Fairfax on, because you turn up, then you have to go over.
Right.
Will property have to be bought for that?
That is currently owned and operated by Norfolk Southern, but they have very limited freight service as well. At this point, we haven't done the design to determine if we would be able to have temporal separation and be on their tracks, or would we have to have a light rail track offset from the freight tracks. That hasn't been decided.
In the area between Fairfax and a point east of Newtown will be on the highway, and the rail most probably be on the same alignment, so it'll be a shared right-of-way.
Okay.
That will be new, though. That'll be, and we've got various feasible alternatives that we're looking at to provide that service.
I want to take a look at that same map one more time. And again, I know because of the colors here, it's not real easy to see, but because there's the red line that travels out that we've been talking about. But there's also, if you can see closely up here, if you went out of the city someplace else and on what sort of is that green line, go up to the University of Cincinnati, which is the second biggest employment area in the counties, only to the downtown, and then went across what's known as the Wasson line, that yellow line, ultimately gets you out near Fairfax, Marymount, the same way. Isn't that a much more populated area and would generate a lot higher traffic on the line? Is the report that I saw, you're estimating 6,000 riders a day on the line you're proposing. Isn't part of that problem that you're running through so much of an area that isn't that developed, and maybe that's a good thing? So, I mean, what about that? What about this alternative?
Well, as part of the Eastern Quarter study, we did look at both alignments, the Oasis line and the Wasson line. However, the Wasson line depends on the I-71 light rail being built. Even though we have preliminary engineering for that 71 line, it was very costly, included a tunnel under Mount Auburn, so it has, in essence, the region kind of believes that that has to be revisited. So at this point, both lines carried similar numbers of ridership, and in fact the Oasis line ridership did not include ridership for events, which is interesting. It was only day-to-day
the idea
commuters.
of riverfront events, which if the banks
Right.
Thank you.
I think what we should have supposed to say, when the banks gets finished, there will be a lot of events programmed onto the bank, so there'd be a lot of people using the line. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so there would be, we would expect a higher ridership than that. But the Wasson line is vital as well, but it's all part of a regional rail network, but that would be dependent on the 71 alignment. So there's just a lot of work that still needs to be done on that.
We're preserving the Wasson line.
Yes.
We want to preserve that so that, if in fact in the future the I-71 line comes to fruition, that'll be available. But the Oasis line stood alone, and that's why it got the attention it got in the initial work on the preliminary engineering environmental impact study report.
I'm running out of time. I only got about a minute left, but I want to ask this question because there are a lot of environmentalists who are very worried about a new bridge across Little Miami River. Some people even speculating that what this is all really about is the chance to build that bridge and then get a passage out of the city for 74. What's your reaction to that?
Absolutely not. We've made a very sound statement at the Hamilton County Engineer's Office that we do not support an interstate through the Little Miami River Valley. Okay. And the structure that would cross the Little Miami River would not have piers in the river. We would protect the bank. We have a green infrastructure study that was performed through OKI that gives us a plan to help mitigate issues.
Okay, I wanted to ask that question because I know it's out there. Thank you very much for being here. Lots of good information. And thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Join us again next week to meet the men and the women working to shape and plan our community for the future. Have a good week.